Alright guys, so today I want to talk to you about the 3 most meta weapons that everybody is using for the wall crasher. Now if you're unsure what I'm talking about, Moxie had recently put out a video utilizing the AK, Biscuit has most recently put out a video using the Excava, and I'd put out a video about a week before all of that using the Albion Cavalry Gun. Now all 3 of these guns are actually very strong, and I don't think that you can actually go wrong using any of these weapons, because I think each one of these has their own strengths and their own weaknesses, and that is all going to depend on your playstyle. And a big shout out to the content creators that I mentioned. They have made some awesome guides and awesome videos around these weapons and around the wall crasher, so definitely check them out. But having said all that guys, let's go ahead and hop into the video. Alright guys, so the first gun I actually want to talk about is going to be the Albion Cavalry Gun. That is the gun that I suggest people use in my videos. Now, the reason I like the Albion Cavalry Gun and the builds around the Albion Cavalry Gun is because of its just pure ease of use. If you've done the wall crasher, then you know that your pub lobbies can be absolutely crazy. Sometimes things go perfect, and other times things go less than perfect. And the Albion Cavalry Gun and the build that we use for it really minimizes all of the errors and just allows you to put in damage. Because of the build we use on Serena, you don't ever have to worry about MP or ammo. And because this is a machine gun, it has a very large magazine, which is going to keep you from having to dash non-stop, which is something that does tend to happen when it comes to the assault rifles. Now, if you know anything, ease of use typically means less damage. And, transparently, this gun will do a little bit less damage than the other 2 weapons that we mentioned. But the big thing here to note is there are more caveats that go into that than just the weapon. When it comes to the amount of damage you're doing, and realistically, your clear time on the wall crasher, this gun will always get you a reasonable clear time, and it will guarantee that no matter who is in your team, you can clear the wall crasher by yourself. This gun also doesn't require you to have anybody else specifically in your team, though you can have somebody like a Nell or somebody else that's using Clairvoyant to give you a little bit of a debuff and help increase your damage. But at the end of the day, you don't have to use that. Alternatively, you could modify our build to use Passionate Sponsor. If you use Passionate Sponsor, you will increase your damage. But again, it's going to make things a little bit more complicated. Using a Passionate Sponsor build can lend you to having MP issues later on. The best way to eliminate that is to add a second weapon into your rotation and use that to help refill your MP. But again, that adds more steps into the build, and I like the ease of use of the build that we showcased. At the end of the day, the gun's going to do enough damage, and where you're actually going to have problems is less of you and more of your teammates. If you have a lot of teammates putting in suboptimal damage, it's really not going to matter. Also, if you have teammates moving the boss all over, you're going to be missing your shots. And then, even outside of that, if you don't dash at the optimal time, start reloading, and or you don't proc your 4 at the exact right time when it comes off of cooldown, you will lose damage. The real reason to me the Albion Cavalry Gun shines is because there's not a lot of error on your side. Most of your DPS loss is going to come from things external of your control, unless you're missing your 4s or unless you're missing your 1s every once in a while. So the next weapon I want to talk about is the AK. And the gun itself does feel like it increases your damage by a little bit. Now, I'm not going to say this is an insane amount, but it definitely does feel like you will see an increase in your damage. The main downsides to this are the fact that this gun does utilize Passionate Sponsor, which is going to change up your build on Serena a little bit. And because of that, if the fight drags out a prolonged amount of time and you are not swapping weapons to get MP, you might find yourself out of MP just from the amount of times you have to dash alone. Using this gun instead of something like the Albion Cavalry Gun will have you dashing twice as much. And if you start dashing early, you can find that you end up out of dashes and you're waiting on dashes, which means you are not actually reloading and you're not actively doing damage. Also, because you are doing so many dashes, you will be doing a lot of target acquisition. While it's not absolutely insane, if your team is moving the enemy all over the place or causing it to do a lot of obscure movements or maybe even ballerinaing, the additional dashes plus all of that extra movement is going to cause your shot not to be on target, which is going to cause you to lose a ton of damage. To me, this gun is for somebody that is a little bit more locked in when they're playing the game. I don't think this is like a try-hard sweat build, but I do think it does require you to at least pay some attention to what's going on. You're not really going to no-brain when you're using this build just because of all the additional dashes and the couple other things you need to manage. So while I do think this gun actually offers a little bit of a DPS increase, there is a little bit more margin of error just due to the additional dashes, as well as not being able to use RK Leak and all of the things that we use in our Albion Cavalry Gun. So as long as you can manage everything, you can watch your MP, you can watch your ammo, you can watch your cooldown on your 4, you can dash twice as often, and maintain reacquiring your targets, this gun is actually probably going to be for you. Now, the last gun I want to talk about is actually the Excava, and I will be very transparent. I know that this gun on paper does a bunch of additional damage over both of the other 2 guns that we have tried. And I can tell you that I have friends who have used this gun and been able to get between a 10 and a 20 second clear time on the wall crasher with a perfectly optimized team. But in order to get those insane clear times, you need to be queuing up with 8 players, which is very hard to do. And with those 8 players, you need to have a Sharon in your team on top of all the other Serenas having this gun and having this gun built perfect. And one of your Serenas needs to have defense neutralization. And then outside of all of that, you will be using the Passionate Sponsor build on Serena. So if for whatever reason you're in public queues and you do not have the God team that I just talked about, and this fight does drag out, there's actually a chance that you could run out of MP during the fight if nobody else is doing good damage. And when I used this gun, I was so used to using other guns that had a little bit of a lower fire rate, I actually did not utilize my 1 enough, and I ended up running out of rounds when using this gun during the fight. Now on top of that, the loop to use this gun is a little bit different than everything else. This gun actually adds additional steps to it. So if you remember for the Albion, it was just use your 1, get some rounds coming back, fire your gun, dash to reload, pop your 4 on cooldown. For the AK, it was a little bit more. We had to pop our 1, do a little bit of damage, dash to reload, pop our 4 on cooldown. But outside of all that, we had to manage our dash charges and we had to keep an eye on our MP. So for this gun, it works a little bit different. Once you get in the air, you're going to use your 1 to start getting your rounds back. After that, you're going to hip fire your first mag into the enemy's weak point. After you dash to reload, you're actually going to ADS for the second one because you want to get the debuff from the weapon to shoot out. Then when you dash to reload, you need to go back to hip firing. Now this gun does have a lower magazine than something like our Albions, and it does have a higher fire rate, so you will be dashing more often just because of how fast it dumps the rounds. Then on top of that, you need to keep an eye on your 4, make sure you're popping it on cooldown, keep an eye on your MP, make sure you don't run out of MP, keep an eye on your rounds, and make sure that you're not getting too low on your rounds, because if you are, you need to pop a 1. And then you have to do all of that while you're trying to reacquire target every time after you dash to make sure you're not missing the weak point or not missing any shots, because if you do, that's a DPS loss. So what does all this actually mean? Well, the TLDR here is that in all honesty, I think you can build either one of these weapons. And I personally think that all 3 of these weapons are actually meta. All 3 of these weapons will get you very good clear times and will get you very good damage numbers. With something like the Wall Crasher being an 8-man fight, if you're somebody who pubs in and you're not bringing a pre-made team, I really suggest you pick the weapon that synergizes with your playstyle. Because at the end of the day, all of these weapons do similar damage. And while the weapon will affect your DPS, there are a lot of other things that are going to affect it even more, such as the boss moving, you missing shots, you not timing your dashes properly, you not keeping 100% uptime on your 4, you accidentally running out of MP, especially with the assault rifles, and maybe you accidentally running out of ammo with some of the assault rifles. And with this being an 8-man fight, most of the things that will affect your clear time are going to be the other 7 teammates you have. Now, if you do have a pre-made team, then I think things change depending on how many people you have in a team. Something like the Excava really shines with more Excavas around as long as you have a Sharon there to help with some of the electric shred. If you don't have a Sharon or you don't have anybody around to help with the electric shred, the Excava realistically doesn't outshine the AK by that much, if realistically at all. On paper, it does have a higher damage, but most of that damage actually comes from electric and not from the gun's damage itself. So outside of that, if you have a team, the next best choice is going to be between the AK and the Albion Cavalry Gun. Now the AK on paper does have a little bit higher damage, but it does have a marginally higher skill ceiling when it comes to getting all of that damage on target. Now the good thing here is most of the AK's damage is actually coming from the weapon damage and not the fire damage, and that puts it on par with something like the Albion Cavalry Gun, where most of its damage actually comes from weapon damage and not attribute damage. So the best thing I can say for you between the AK and the Albion Cavalry Gun is pick the one that fits your playstyle the most. If you enjoy the extra dashes, if you enjoy the extra resources to manage, and for you that's worth maybe doing a little bit more damage, then definitely pick up the AK. If you're somebody that likes a little bit more of a casual approach, you don't want to have to dash as much, you don't want to have to worry about your MP, you don't want to have to worry about your rounds, you just want to get in, you want to get in the air, and you just want to do damage, then the Albion is probably better for you. Because again, at the end of the day, most of your clear time is actually going to depend on the 7 other people in your party and not yourself. That doesn't mean you can play with no thumbs, but realistically your teammates and how much the boss moves is going to affect your damage almost as much as your guns themselves when all things are considered equal. So now that we're at the end of the video, I do want to give a big shout out to Moxie and Biscuit again. I did not come up with the AK build and the Excava build. Those were definitely their builds and I will not take credit for them. And I think these builds work really well if you have a good team to play with. But having said all that, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video and you enjoyed this breakdown. Definitely get out there, build the gun that works best for you, and don't worry, all 3 of these guns are meta. But now if you enjoyed the content, consider liking and subscribing for more First Descendant content. And if you want to get to know me and the community a little bit more, consider coming over and watching us live on Twitch. We do stream 5 days a week and we would absolutely love to have you over there. But having said all that, guys, thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day.